Hey guys, Htown Wheelhouse here with Locked on Astros and with a special edition to talk trade scenarios. We are bringing in Josh Neighbors from Locked on Nationals to talk about this Josh Bell trade. Is he going to come to Houston? Are they going to bring him and another player? What's it going to take? We're going to try to break this down. It's all speculation, but it's fun. The stove is getting hot. So without further ado, let's talk about who will be the next Houston Astro from the Washington Nationals.
Hello and welcome to Locked on Astros, your daily Astros podcast. Here are your hosts, Eric the Man Heisman and Brett Htown Wheelhouse Chansey.
We are Locked on Houston Astros. We're your daily Astros podcast. I'm Htown Wheelhouse. You can find me on Twitter at Htown Wheelhouse. You can find me on Instagram at Htown Wheelhouse. But enough about me. I want to bring in my guest. He came in last minute. I swooped in. I said, I got to have you on. Josh is the man out there. He does a great job covering Locked on Nationals. Josh Neighbors, welcome into the show. Tell the people where they can find you.
You guys can find me on Twitter at @JoshNeighbors_, and you guys can find the show wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube as well.
Awesome. Thank you for coming in. I know, and the reason why I reached out to you and you and I were talking right before we hit the record button was this Josh Bell talk is actually taking shape pretty quickly, it seems like. Now, it's all speculation on our part, and so let me just make this disclaimer. We're not airing this show to say this is what the deal is absolutely going to be. But I brought Josh in because he's the Nationals expert for their team. And we know that Katie Nolan watches Locked on Nationals like she watches Locked on Astros before they air the big Apple TV games. So who better to go to than Josh Neighbors? So there's a lot of speculation. There are a lot of guys from our side that have been named: Solomon, Santos, Ivy, Perez, Siri. Some people have included Seth Martinez. I've even seen out there. I mean, a very good relief pitcher who just really kind of had one of his worst outings that I've seen him have in basically at all this year. And there are so many different things going on. And you and I talked about, and we'll get into this in a second, how it may not be just Josh Bell, but someone else attached to Josh Bell to maybe incentivize the team to take him on, because he does have a $10 million contract that's remaining. So he is a free agent at the end of the year. Right now, tell the Astros fans what the Nationals are looking to get in return. And let's just go with Josh Bell right now, and then we'll add the other name here in a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, they're looking for basically everything. I think the consensus for a lot of people is pitching. That's what people start with. Just because of the Nationals pitching, it's really patchwork right now. You're talking about, Josiah Gray they got in the Dodgers last year. Patrick Corbin, it's not been very good, obviously. They've got Paulo Espino and Anibal Sanchez and Eric Fetty. So, and there's a couple guys coming down the line, but they really need to build up that starting pitching. So that's kind of the first place that you begin to think, hey, the Nationals will look there. And I mean, really this is a team that, we're not sure how much longer Juan Soto is going to be part of the team. It might be a week, it might be less, it might be 15 years, right? We don't really know. So obviously outfield could be something they're looking for. Victor Robles hasn't been spectacular. I know Astros fans remember him. He's pretty good, that one season they won the title, but really hasn't been that good ever since. And so that's a spot of concern in left field. It's a variety of people out there. You get Yadiel Hernandez, you get Lane Thomas. So, they need outfield help. And then in the infield, Josh Bell might be gone. At third base, it's Maikel Franco. At shortstop, Cesar Hernandez. And then also second base, prospect Luis Garcia. It's there's really not a whole lot in this team that's kind of figured out for the future. So there's plenty of spots open. They're just looking kind of for, this is like NFL. You're drafting for best available kind of a type deal. So they're going to look to see how many suitors there are. I know that the Mets kind of dropped out of the race after, Vogelbach. It really didn't make a whole lot of sense for them to get another guy like Josh Bell. They need more help in the outfield. So the Astros are now emerged as kind of the prime candidate. Now, other teams could use him for sure, but the Astros are the prime candidate right now. And so we'll see if they can put a package together that makes the Nationals say thumbs up, or, will the Nationals, start shopping around and maybe pit teams against each other? I don't know. But I think the Astros they have the inside track as it stands right now.
Right. And I'm just sitting here looking through just kind of some evidence, online gives me, Ken Rosenthal saying, he had mentioned the whole Mets thing, how they're out. I think someone else had mentioned the Mets were out earlier as well. And it looks like the Nationals want to get rid of him, but they want something decent in return.
Yeah.
When you and I were looking at a lot of our minor leaguers, even though Houston does not have the top minor league positions or the top minor league ranking right now, they're like at the bottom. They still have pieces. Like, let's talk about Pete Solomon. Pete Solomon would really be a major league ready type pitcher who would probably almost certainly get a call up very soon after being traded if he was traded. He's got the experience at the big league level. He's been up and down. He has had some issues with giving up multiple runs, multiple hits in games, but the potential is there. The spin rate, the velocity, and all that stuff. Is someone like a Pete Santos, I'm sorry, Pete Solomon, Logan Kearney type of package seem appealing to the Nationals? And let me just give you one. I've got Perez and Solomon at a grade of 6, and that's over what Bell is at a 5.3. Now, we're using trade values as our baseline. It's not foolproof. It's kind of like a poll, like plus or minus a few points here or there. A Perez and Solomon might be an overpay with the 5.3. Who else could the Nationals throw in that would make that a closer, fairer trade for the Astros?
Yeah, matching these values is always difficult, right? I mean, this is why you see so many people trying to chuck Patrick Corbin into a Juan Soto trade to make the values work. It's just really difficult to do. It might not make sense to do things like that. So, yeah, I would say the talk that I think contending teams always need to seem to need a couple things, right? Bat and a reliever is normally the two things that they seek, and so I think the Nationals have a good opportunity to probably pair those two things together. And when I look at guys on the Nationals that could go, there's 3 relievers right now that really are top candidates for this. Steve Cishek, the veteran, also Kyle Finnegan, who's younger and still got team control left, and then Carl Edwards Jr., who is on a 1-year deal, but also got a minor league deal. It'll kick in for next year, but it'll be really cheap. So he actually, you might get him for another year, is the way I understand it. But that was a guy that nobody else wanted, Carl Edwards Jr., and the Nationals took a chance on him, and it's really paid off for him this season. Had a couple outings, where things didn't go well, but he always responds if he has a bad outing with like 6 or 7 or 8 clean innings after that. So he's a guy that some of you all might remember from the Cubs World Championship team. It's a guy who's been pitching in the big league since 2015. Got 2.95 ERA and 36 2/3 innings worked this year, 36 Ks on the year. And, a lot of his pitches have been well above average. Fastball has been looking really strong this year. Curveball has been looking really good as well. So that those two he has used to great effect, and probably a guy who could be a 6th, 7th, or 8th inning guy for you. A nice bridge guy, can give you 2 innings if you need it. And the Nationals have called upon him a lot, and he's done really well. So I think he's a guy out there. Kyle Finnegan is another hard-throwing guy. Had a little bit of ups and downs, but this is a guy who's got a really good sinker that he will challenge people with, and team control to go along with it too. I think he's 30, 31, 32 years old, I believe Kyle Finnegan is at this point. So I think that one of those 2 guys will get paired with it. And really, if you get 2 guys like that, like you mentioned, the Astros farm system is not like one of the top farm systems. So you'd be willing to part with a couple guys like that, especially if it's a Finnegan, because here's the thing. You get to hold on to him for a while. And also a Josh Bell, the opportunity to re-sign him, and he's not going to be crazy expensive. It's not a guy you're going to have to break the bank for Josh Bell. He might get a decent contract. Yeah, I mean, he's going to be 30. He's 29 right now. So he'll be 30 at the end of the year. And he plays first base. He can also DH, and he's been killing both righties and lefties this year. So, with that flexibility, it's not like a guy's a plus defensive player either. That's something that I think for the Astros, you might want to invest in. And I think that the opportunity to re-sign him is going to be there. And I think a team like the Astros, because you could use a guy like that. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think maybe pairing a guy like that, one of those guys. I think Carl Edwards is probably the guy who most likely gets dealt first.
Yeah, and so I like that possibility, but I think right now with the Astros really lacking a like too many left-handed arms. Now in the American League, when we talk about needing a left-handed reliever, we really we don't necessarily need it for the AL because there's not a ton of AL teams that really stack a ton of left-handers against you. I know the Yankees have a few, but I think it's more a National League problem when you get to the World Series if you have a lot of left-handed bats. I think the Mets have a lot of left-handed bats. I'm not sure off the top of my head, and so that's where
Yeah,
they're
they
looking.
can't hit. They really struggle to hit lefties. So
So
they can stack lefties back to back to back sometimes on you.
yeah, and so that right there may be the only I think reserve that holds off in someone's mind on that. And if we're talking about betting, and I would just say this: if people want to go to betonline.net, is where you can get all your sports action. It's where you can get. I mean, you can look at trade scenarios. You can look at who's going to make the
Bet on
playoffs.
Juan Soto's next team.
Exactly. You can bet on what uniform Juan Soto is going to wear. Is he going to be a Dodger? Is he going to be a Yankee? Is he? He's not going to be an Astro. We know that. I don't know. I mean, are the Angels going to sign another great player and like ruin their career? I hope not, because Otani needs to get out of LA as soon as possible. And he can come to Houston if he wants. We definitely welcome him with open arms. I'm sure you guys would as well. But at the same time, betonline.net has you covered for everything. So go there. Check it out there, all the sports scores, the latest lines, everything you want to need. Just know that betonline.net is where the game starts. So there are a couple names. Colin Barber, who is a highly sought after outfielder. I don't like talking about that name being traded, but maybe the Nationals drive up the price a little bit. Maybe there is another team. Now, if there are a ton of teams out there looking, but the Astros are the only true suitors, I think that works in the Astros' favor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Forrest Whitley. Forrest Whitley has a value of 2. Now, he just came off the mound in a game I went to recently because of shoulder inflammation. They say it's natural. It's a natural thing to happen after you basically after you go through Tommy John surgery. So my question to you is this. Um, what do you think the possibility of them taking on someone like a Forrest Whitley who has had high upside but just has not really broken through?
I would say it's probably lower, just because you have to you have to understand what the Nationals are dealing with right now in the pitching department of injuries is, I mean, it's pretty substantial. When you talk about a guy like a Steven Strasburg, you gave up the house for him, and it just really he's concerns about whether he'll actually pitch again are there. You've had a guy like Joe Ross, who they really did need, and you're wondering, if they'll ever have him come back. Will they see him again? So I think they are going to be more apt to go, and they've had a ton of guys in their minor league system to go through surgeries. So I think they're going to want somebody with a clean bill of health. Not saying they won't take any risks here. I mean, they obviously take him, but I think they're looking for more guys that they know they can, they can hope will be part of the system moving forward. So, I know that they need to have to take some swings and misses, and they will at some point in time. But in the pitching department, they just need reliable arms. They just need reliable arms at this point to fill up spots. Because, I mean, I'm not sure how many more years you can keep bringing back John Lester's and Anibal Sanchez's to come fill your rotation. If you're trying to build something, try to build it with some younger arms, maybe some guys with some cleaner bills of health.
Exactly. And I just mentioned that because I had seen that someone had actually like suggested that name, and so I wanted to get kind of
it's
your
totally fair. It's
on
totally fair. I'm just, I think after getting burned with the way they have, especially with the injury now to Strasburg, they really have to focus. And as many guys as they have out now too, both in bullpen and starting, they want a gun for guys who have good history health wise.
Now, how about this? JJ Metajevic, Perez, and then Solomon, all for Bell. And that actually gets you at 810. Now, there is a lot more overvalue on that. And this is a deal where you could throw in a relief pitcher like an Edwards. Now, are the other two names that you mentioned now? I know we had C-Shack for like a hot minute and he bolted, I believe, and like in spring training. Are either one of those guys left-handers?
No.
Okay.
The one thing the Nationals actually don't have a surplus
is
of
left-handers.
They don't have left. Yeah, I mean, this is why they're also sought after, right?
Right.
People want left-handed relief pitching, and the Nationals, quite frankly, don't have any of it that's super valuable right now.
Okay. Yeah, so that would be more of like kind of like a throw in, right?
Right.
Because you're not just randomly cherry picking some like random guy off the AAA team,
No.
but JJ Metachevic, who is major league ready, who is in the major leagues, and then you're Pete Solomon. I mean, you could almost get away with maybe JJ Metachevic, Solomon, and maybe a Tyler Ivey who doesn't have much value. You could throw in two pitchers, and that gets you closer to the 5.3 for Josh Bell. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
especially when you give him a couple pitchers and throw in a guy who's a lottery type guy. It's a couple guys around the top 10 in the system. You throw a guy at the back end who's more of a lottery type, the lottery ticket type player. I think the Nationals would definitely be open to that.
so if you were to give me a percentage, like what percent chance do you think it is that Houston lands Josh Bell? Is it more than a 50% chance? Is it like closer to 100 right now at this point? What would be your best guess?
If I had to, I mean, yeah, there's like a 95% chance he gets traded. I think, I always like to leave a little bit of possibility, right? Anything can happen.
Right?
But I mean, and the Astros seem to be the team that's making that push. And so, if they show the desire to want him, I mean, I think other teams, we have a week left, right? So other teams will be
Right.
making the calls. Maybe they're just waiting to see, what's going to happen here. But yeah, I think the Astros have the inside track now. So, I mean, I guess you put it at 50-50, right? I mean, it's hard to, it's hard to kind of handicap these things, but I think the
No,
Astros
it
have the
is.
inside track. I think they have the inside track.
And I know the first thing that people think about when we talk about trading. I don't know if you heard years ago. It's kind of a fun conversation to always have. Is how close were the Astros to actually signing Bryce Harper, to
Mhm.
prying Bryce Harper out of Washington versus when he went to, you know, Philadelphia. And from what I hear, the Nationals asking price was like it was like insurmountable, and the Astros kind of backed out. Do you like how legitimate were those talks? Are you aware of like how close it actually was? Because from what I'm hearing, it was pretty close, and then I believe the owner blocked it.
Yeah, well, I remember with that situation, I remember how long it dragged out. I think that's the one thing that we all remembered. And to me, I thought it was a foregone conclusion that he was going to go to the Philadelphia Phillies. I thought that
Okay.
was a destination. I thought we were all just waiting. I thought we all waited too long, to be quite frank, for that to end up actually happening. But yeah, I mean, from what I remember, God, it feels like it was forever ago, right? And it really wasn't.
It
To me,
does.
it was the Phillies from pillar to post. It just felt like that was going to be where he ended up. Although I remember hearing some Astros, there was some noise there, but I think as the gap widened, people were like, why isn't this thing done yet for Philadelphia? Why isn't it done yet? And it eventually got done.
Exactly. And here's the thing. If you're waiting for that special moment, and if, Jim Crane wants to treat Josh Bell with something special, maybe
A
he can go to
special moment.
BlueNile.com, and maybe he can, and we're not looking for him to get engaged or anything. We're not looking to fall in love with Josh Bell. We're just maybe get him like a nice, like maybe a nice
Tennis
bracelet,
bracelet.
or maybe,
Little
yeah,
tennis
maybe
bracelet.
a tennis bracelet, or even a necklace he can wear like in the World Series when the Astros are there, I mean, kind of like Jock Peterson's rocking the pearl necklace. Maybe we get Josh Bell something special. But here's the thing, in all seriousness, if you have that special moment that's coming up, if you're about to get engaged and you're like, you know what, I don't want to screw this up. Like, I've planned out the proposal. I've done all this stuff. I've got everybody coming. Everybody's there. She doesn't know what's going on, but you don't have the perfect piece yet, or you're in that process. You need to go to BlueNile.com. They have bench jewelers that are available 24/7, experts that will help you decide on the shape, the size, the clarity, and even the setting style. They create each ring that is one of a kind. Truly, they've been around since 1999. They've been doing things. They know how to do it right. 24/7 legendary service, 30-day returns. The Blue Nile Diamond price guarantee, where they compare to other competitors. Basically, in most cases, they can meet or beat their price. So this is what I want you to do. Go to BlueNile.com today and check out their anniversary sale. You can get up to 40% savings on classic fine jewelry pieces, and 25% on engagement ring settings. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. So to wrap up this conversation, I really think Josh Bell to the Astros gets done. It's just the pieces in play. Is it a Solomon and Perez? Is it a Kearney and Perez and Tyler Ivey? There are all kinds of scenarios out there. Do you think that? Do you think Astros fans should be creating scenarios where they're overpaying a little bit, or do you think the Nationals get kind of a discount because it is, for all intents and purposes, a rental, and the negotiations with the next team is kind of out of the Nationals' hands?
Yeah, I would say this. Like I've always credited the Astros. They've done a great job of, I'll call it, window management. Like they've done an excellent job of managing the championship window, right? And a lot of that is because of how they've brought guys along and where they found guys. Like you mentioned, that the prospect side of that is now running a little dry, right? We're starting, you can only have so many good guys down there for so long. So now is kind of a time, to maybe empty the tank for guys to make the most out of this window, right? I mean, this is where you want to kind of empty the clip. And if you got guys down there that can help you get a Josh Bell and a Kyle Finnegan, and actually, maybe help you get I think Josh Bell would actually be a worthwhile investment for them for maybe 2 or 3 more years. Maybe give him an extension. I think that's worth it. Also, I want to mention this too. The fans are going to love Josh Bell. Like, he is a beloved teammate. People in the community absolutely love this guy. He is a team first guy. You never really hear stories about him, anything happening, behind the scenes. Like, it's just, like, it's all positive. He has a book club in every single city that he goes to, that he starts and does good with the kids. Cool. Like, you'll love this guy. He's fantastic. So I want to throw that in there too. But yeah, I mean, I think this is the time where you empty the clip to get players like this. And the Astros, man, I was actually talking to Kevin Ashtonfelder, and you guys are all familiar with, does TV.
Yeah.
Talking to him from other podcasts about the Houston Cougars. And, we mentioned the Astros, and I said, man, they look good. And he's like, yeah, this group has it. This group's got it. And I think bringing in Josh Bell just would make it even stronger. So I think, yeah, you should overpay, because this team's got a chance, man. This team's got a real good chance.
So do you think getting him to sign an extension, do you think he would want at least a 3-year deal?
Yeah, I'd say it's going to be 3 years, and maybe you pay him, you pay him a decent chunk of change, but like it's not something you're too worried about, because
you think it like right. Do you think, because I'm thinking, because I was thinking 2 years, $12 million each, and then like a 30-year team option, like, incentives, or 30-year player option, or even, I mean, if you pay, because right now he's getting paid 10, if you can pay him between 12 and, I wouldn't pay much more than 14, but he seems like a guy that would take that. He's actually originally from Texas. I believe he's from the Dallas area. And I believe he went to the University of Texas. Someone said he's a Longhorn, I think. I may be getting that wrong. We may want to check that before we get off, so I don't get slaughtered
I'll
by.
check that for you. Don't worry.
But that, to me, like 3 years, I don't know, 3 years, $12 million each year. That would be a decent salary. Maybe add some bonuses in there, some incentives.
He was supposed to go to Texas. And got drafted. So okay. I believe he signed a letter of intent to go to Texas. So
there you go. Okay,
so
there you go.
Kind of a Longhorn, yeah. I do think it's going to end up being. I think it's going to end up being in the 15 to 18 range.
Okay. So I'm kind of under.
Yeah,
under
I think
it's
because he's 30, and I mean, he's just having a career season. Here's the thing: like, besides 2020, he's been really, really strong. You go back and look since June last year, he's been on a freaking tear, and now basically it's been a full.
Okay.
You get over 162 of him playing like this.
So you have him on kind of like a contract what you gave Michael Brantley, 15, 16 million, but he's also younger. And
he can hit every day, because he's not a guy you get to platoon at all. Like, he's had years where he's not hit well, but he's hitting 290 plus against lefties and over 300 against righties. So
let me ask one more thing before I let you go, because if he comes here, I don't see Yuli going anywhere. Yuli will finish at least out this season. Do you think Josh Bell the type player that if they said, okay, you and Yuli are going to share, but it's going to be 70-30 you? Is Josh Bell the type player that says, you know what, I just want to help the team any way possible?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's fine with that, especially if you give him the extension, right? I mean, he'll get that. And I think for him, he kind of shared it a little bit with Zimmerman last year. Like he
Right.
shared that a little bit with Zimmerman just because, actually last year, Josh Bell was not as good as hitting lefties last season. And Zimmerman was notorious for absolutely killing left-handed pitching. So I think, yeah, I think, but here's the thing. You might say it's 70-30, and we thought it might be 80-20, and they're going to teach another kid, Riley Adams, to play first. He might just play so well you can't go 70-30, right?
Because
And
he is a
Gurriel's
very good
bad.
defensive first baseman, from what I
Yeah, he's above
understand.
average, right? He's above average first
Okay.
baseman defensively, I believe. Although, like, he does make some errors and they look glaring because he's a little bit clunky sometimes moving around, but he's actually I believe above average this year on defense at first base. So
Okay.
I think that's the thing is, like, you always go into the year having ideas of how it might go. And if Josh Bell is Josh Bell, like he was this year, that 70-30 split might not actually come true. And that's fine because you got the better guy playing there.
Good deal. I love to hear that. At the end of the day, the chips are going to fall where they may. I think they get this deal done. Josh, thank you so much for joining me on this
Yeah.
just impromptu. I literally sent you a message, and
Yeah,
within
for sure.
15 minutes, we're recording. And like the first half of the show, I didn't have my mic plugged in, so I hope the audio was okay on this one. But it's an exciting time. The hot stove is heating up. So stay tuned in to Locked On Astros. Make sure you make us your first listen. Hey, if you're in the Nationals market, make them your first listen. And you know what? Make us your second listen. If you love Josh Bell and it becomes an Astro, we'll love talking about him, and you'll love hearing about him. And I'm sure Josh neighbors will love to reminisce. Oh, that guy, he was so good.
Mm-hmm.
So without further ado, Josh, thank you so much for joining me. For myself, for Eric the Man Heisman, who's actually on the course right now. I'm kind of jealous. He's out on the course hitting some golf balls up in the Midwest while I'm here grinding, but it's all good. We do this as a team. Keep doing your thing over there with Locked On Nationals. And man, what an exciting time. I mean, Juan Soto, who knows what kind of bounty he's going to bring, right? So remember,
It's
we're
been
your
crazy, yeah.
team. It has been. But remember, we're your team every day. And like always, we're always positive, always Stros. Bury me in the H.